This is the Uptime Wind Energy Podcast bonus episode. In this episode, Joel, Rosemary, and I discuss where the mechanically inclined employees are in the United States. And they may be in places you haven't thought of, because some of them were a surprise to me. So this is a good discussion because wind turbine technicians are going to become one of the primary expanding roles in America. So it'll be a great time to be a wind turbine technician. Question is, where are they going to come from? It looks like mostly in the middle of the United States, but not all. So we have a good back and forth here. So stay tuned. This is an excellent episode, bonus episode of the Uptime Wind Energy Podcast. A really interesting article in constructioncoverage.com, not a place that I frequent very often, but they had an article that just popped out called American Cities with the Most Mechanically Inclined Workers in 2023. I thought, oh, maybe my little town's in that.
Curious,
not
yeah.
Likely, but so let's just curious to see, right? And they sort of break down the mechanically inclined occupations from laborers and people who move freight and stock around, to people driving tractor trailers, to general maintenance repair people, construction, carpenters, electricians, automobile mechanics, kind of the general categories there. But if you look at the growth, where they say mechanically inclined occupations in the energy sector have the highest growth projections, it is in wind turbine service technician. There you go. So the 2-year and 10-year growth, they are number one in that list. They're in the 10-year projections, it's wind turbines, number one, solar's number two, wood pattern makers is number three. I guess that's furniture makers probably.
That makes sense.
Derrick workers for oil and gas, model makers, more oil and gas. So in terms of the growth, it's going to be wind, solar, oil, and gas. That's not shocking, Joel, is it? And I guess that makes sense.
I would think that the oil and gas wouldn't be growing as hard or as fast as the renewable side, but it makes sense. You know, it makes me think back to Rosemary. You wouldn't know this one because you're not in the U.S., but when you're 17, I think, in high school, they make you take a test called the ASVAB, and the ASVAB is the military aptitude test.
They make you do a test to see if you would be good in the military or what you should do. They
literally came to our school and were like, all right, all of the juniors into the auditorium, and like 10 guys and 2 guys from the Marines, 2 guys from the Navy, 2 guys from the Army stood up there and they gave you this big speech about the military and then had you take this test. And the test, you don't know it while you're taking it, but how it scores you basically is, are you what's the easy way to say this? Are you more inclined to be book smart or mechanically inclined? That's what the test is. Like, are you a guy that can go and like, if a truck is stuck in the woods, how do you get it out? Or are you going to solve a physics problem? And then there's the certain people that
physics
kind
problem?
of tie the two.
How to get your truck
Well,
out.
exactly, right? Exactly. So there's
applied physics.
There's a special people kind of in the middle that cross both those things, and those are the ones they're shooting for, right? Yeah. So those are the ones that they're going like, all right, here's an offer for West Point, here's an offer for the Citadel, here's an offer for the Air Force Academy, that kind of stuff. To be honest with you, the United States military, DoD, has the best set of data for this. But it makes absolute sense. I mean, I think even on just remove the mechanically inclined part of it and just job growth in the U.S., the number all the way through 2030, that the top 2 are wind turbine technicians and nurses. And that's
that makes sense.
I'll give you some personal experience from this side as well. So I used to do a lot of oil and gas exploration, and in oil and gas exploration, you are running survey equipment, but it's not high order survey equipment. It's pretty easy to run. It's push enter, scroll through here, push enter as you walk. Like, it's pretty simple. But your jobs are, you might be on 300 square miles in Wyoming. and you leave in the morning from the staging site on a UTV with a truck and some survey equipment, and you have a radio, but we'll see you back in when it gets dark. So those people are required to kind of be mechanically inclined and understand, like if you get a flat tire or if a stick stabs through your radiator, like how are you getting back to staging? If your radio goes down, like what are you going to do? So what I found over the course of the, I don't know, 8 years that I was responsible for those jobs is that the majority of the people that I hired from the Midwest, basically, and it was an expanded Midwest, we'll even say, from Montana to basically the upper part of Michigan, and then down into, say, I would say Iowa, the northern part, were the best people that we had, where you could just trust them to go and get stuff done. You didn't have to babysit them. You didn't have to worry about them. If there was an issue, they'd figure it out. If a tool was broken, they'd figure out another tool, or they were resourceful. They could get things done. When I had a couple of, and I don't want to point any fingers, right? But I had some people from the farthest West Coast and the farthest East Coast, and they were, man, it was like you had to train them to do every single thing out there multiple times. And then the other side of it was people from the far south, where it was warm all year round and they had a pretty good life most of their lives. If they had to go do something hard, they didn't want to do that either.
Okay, so let me give you the breakdown here by state. So let's just, Rosemary, you've been to America a couple of times. You got a pretty good sense of this. You were in California for a long enough period of time. Mechanically inclined workers relative to the rest of America, California?
No.
Oh, I'm going to say less mechanically inclined. My outside, probably very stereotypical expectation would be the further towards the center you get, the more mechanically minded, because big city latte sippers aren't necessarily known for their mechanical aptitude, I would say, stereotypically speaking.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Not changing transmissions in the street. Probably
Right.
not, no.
Yeah.
All right. So as the list goes, I'll run down. And Joel, I think you pretty much hit it right on the head. Indiana has the highest share of mechanically inclined workers. Now, can you guess why?
I know one of the markets there. So two of them, farming, and they make they manufacture every RV in North America.
Yes, they do. And a lot of transmissions are made there. So a lot of automotive components are made because the Indianapolis 500 is right there. So if you go from like Indianapolis up into sort of Michigan area, there's just a ton of automobile component factories in that space. So, boy, they really know their stuff. I went to school in Indiana at Rose-Hulman, and a lot of my fellow students were from Indiana, and man, they knew how to make stuff. Mm-hmm. It was shocking. I'm from Nebraska. We know how to make some things, right? They were surprisingly well versed in machine shop world. So let me give you the small and mid-sized metro areas for the most mechanically inclined workers, because that's where a lot of the mechanically inclined people are. They're not in New York City. They're not in Philadelphia necessarily.
Yeah,
they're in rural America.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think these places kind of make sense. Elkhart, Goshen, Indiana; Sheboygan, Wisconsin; Midland, Texas; Oshkosh, Wisconsin; Spartanburg, South Carolina, which that one I didn't expect, but
that's a surprise.
Good. Rockford, Illinois; Decatur, Alabama. Alabama's in that mix, right? Mm-hmm. Morristown, Tennessee; Chambersburg, PA, which I've actually been in. Wausau, Wisconsin; Appleton, Wisconsin; Albany, Lebanon, Oregon. Right. So you can think about where that is. Right.
Yeah, all those towns in Wisconsin are literally within an hour of each other. Right. So Rockford, Illinois; Sheboygan, Wausau, Appleton. Those are all Green Bay Packer fans, baby. That's hard working. You've got the Harley Davidson factories there. You got Mercury Marine. There's a ton of manufacturing and industry there.
Going to mid-sized metro areas. Yeah, in mid-sized metro areas, it changes a little bit about where it is because the cities are larger. York, PA, which is a big industrial area if you haven't driven through there. Stockton, California, which odd. Morgantown, North Carolina. Lancaster, PA, which I would agree with. Fort Wayne, Indiana. Again, Indiana. Toledo, Ohio. Makes sense. A lot of manufacturing there. Lakeland, Florida, Reno, Nevada. Do anybody know what's in Reno, Nevada?
Casinos.
Casinos,
That's what I was
true.
going to say.
Mining. And
Yeah.
there's a Tesla battery factory out there. There's a Tesla battery factory.
It's a lot of
but
lead and silver mining, right? Lead, silver, copper.
Yeah, there is. There's a ton of mining out there still. Reading, PA, Greensboro, North Carolina, so Huntsville, Alabama. So if you start going through the list, like, oh yeah, that all makes sense. Now, all those places that we just named are sort of in wind country at the moment. That's where,
except for the ones in the
wind turbine
southeast,
technician would come from.
The southeast ones are
Yeah.
a little bit odd to me, but the manufacturing is there, so that makes sense.
Right. So if wind turbine technicians are going to become the new hot mechanical job, then it makes sense. If you're in Iowa, Indiana, where there's a lot of wind turbines, man, they're just loaded with the ability to grab technicians right there.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when we get to these offshore wind and we start putting a lot of wind turbines in California, put them in New York State, Massachusetts, where the mechanically inclined aren't necessarily there?
Yeah.
You think you're gonna hire a kid from Indiana to move to Massachusetts? That's not super likely.
You can't
You know
there's
see
no
what I'm saying?
big deer to deer hunt out there, you know?
Well, they have restrictions on a lot of things that
Yeah.
a person in Indiana would not necessarily agree with. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the
Right.
issue, right? We talked about that last week or a couple weeks ago about the American Workforce Fairness Act or whatever it was, about trying to get these things.
Yeah.
Like the people just aren't there. The skill set isn't there. Another odd one on that list, and I want to go back to the offshore thing, but I don't want to forget this one, is Midland, Texas. So I've talked to quite a few people out there I used to be working in Midland quite a bit in the oil and gas world. And the trouble in Midland is everybody that's born and raised in Midland and is excited to actually live in Midland wants to work in oil and gas because the wages are so much higher.
Sure.
Yeah,
You can be a rig hand and make $150,000 a year.
I was going to say that if they want to attract offshore wind technicians to the big cities, then they're going to want to be paying them better than the ones that are living rural. I know last time I updated my GWO training, and it was the first time I did it in Australia, there were a couple of young kids there, apprentice electricians and other trades, and they had entered the wind industry as a way to escape big city prices. So we've got a bit of a cost of living crisis in Australia, especially in the big cities. And this guy was saying, he can't afford to live in Sydney with the money that he makes as a, second year apprentice electrician. So he moved to Mudgee. He said, it's great. It's I can live on my own. It's wine country, so I can tour wineries on the weekends, and working in the wind farms is just great. So it will be interesting to see how the offshore wind farms can lure people back from those kinds of nice lifestyle changes that you can make as a wind turbine technician.
The difference there will be they'll have to pay them. That's the only way you're going to get people to do that, right? To come from Center America is you're going to have to shoot their wages to the moon to get them to move to the coasts because, as it boils down politically, a lot of people in the Midwest will just say like, I'm not moving there. Like I'm not going to that liberal stronghold or whatever. Like that's kind of what it is, right? I mean, it's just a reality in the U.S.
Right. Even Joel, I think you hit it on the head. Even in rural New York, which tends to be more mechanically inclined than New York City.
They don't want
area,
to go to the coast.
In general, they're not going. Yeah, they have not a lot of love for the New York City area in terms of politics and lifestyle.
There's still mechanical people in those cities, right? I mean, there's got to be or people with trades. I mean, wind turbine technicians come from a lot of backgrounds, like electricians or machinists or whatever. And surely LA and New York have those trades there that could be persuaded over to the wind industry.
I think that's going to be the issue, Rosemary, is that people who are mechanically inclined, and say they're working in HVAC or they're working in automotive repair, they're probably making some decent money in those areas. Do I want to retrain to do this thing out in the cold Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean? I don't think so. I probably don't want to do that. And so that's where they're going to have trouble because there's just not enough. And that's the real issue. And if I want to give you the top 10 big city places. And Joel, stop me when you hear one that goes like, "Oh, that doesn't even make any sense." But I think they mostly do. Coming at number 10, Houston.
That one does make sense.
Oil
That
and
makes
gas,
sense to me.
right?
Yeah.
Makes sense to me too.
Milwaukee, number 9.
Oh, yeah.
Milwaukee.
That should be higher on the list.
I thought so too, actually, when I saw it. Number 8, Cincinnati. And that's also including the kind of the
Midwest.
Kentucky, Ohio,
Yeah, that one makes
Indiana
sense.
corner right there.
A lot of industry there.
Right. Tulsa. I love Tulsa.
Tulsa.
That place is awesome to me. It's decent weather. They've got aerospace. They have oil and gas. They have a lot of different technology things there, Tulsa. And so there's a lot of mechanically inclined people there. Some of my family lives there, and they're definitely my family's mechanically inclined. They just got attracted to there. Indianapolis 500, right? All automotive things around there. Memphis, Tennessee. That's one I didn't expect.
I don't expect that one either. That's an odd one.
Yeah. Right. I wouldn't expect that. Detroit.
Yep.
Working in car factories, right? No, number 4. Number 3 is Louisville, Kentucky.
There's a lot of car factories and manufacturing down there too, though.
True, Ford's there.
Yeah.
Ford's in Louisville.
Yeah, there's a Chevy plant there too. They make Corvettes there.
Oh, that's right. That's where they had the big sinkhole at the Corvette Museum. That was near there. You remember that, Joel? Where they had the sinkhole at the Corvette Museum?
I remember that. I didn't know it was in Kentucky, though.
I think it was in Kentucky. Yeah, I think it's right near the factory. All right, number 2. Okay, this is where I think we're going to go sideways. Riverside, California.
Riverside, California. Okay, so where is Riverside? Riverside's right outside of LA, isn't it?
Isn't Riverside outside? I think
It's
so.
east of
Right?
LA. I can confirm. I have a map here because I don't know about half of these places.
Then that makes, if they're going by volume, it makes sense.
Oh, maybe it's a volume thing. Okay, yeah. Okay. Maybe it's a volume thing. And then number 1,
I need a drum roll.
Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Yep.
Grand Rapids, Michigan.
GM.
That would make sense to me too because of the cars.
Yeah,
right?
it's all unionized labor for the passenger vehicle industry.
Generations of mechanically inclined people because it's been passed down.
Yeah.
Through kids doing the same job the parents were doing.
The Riverside, California one is interesting, but it makes sense because there's something has to feed that metropolis, right? When you talk about the other ones,
that's true.
Almost all the other ones are feeding metropolis. Like Houston, 4th largest city in the country, makes sense. If you talk about the 3rd largest city, is Chicago. So Indianapolis, Milwaukee, makes sense. Fort Wayne, they're all right there within an hour and a half drive. So Riverside makes sense because it's feeding LA. And they're actually, I know some pretty good engineers from out there too. But
it doesn't mean there's nobody.
Yeah.
It's just yeah. So let's look at where the wind farms are going to be offshore. Boston, right? A lot of wind turbines near there.
Mm-hmm.
54th on the list. 54th. That's a struggle.
Yeah.
That's going to be hard. And New York, New Jersey, Newark area is 55th, right? So Boston and New York are basically in the same spot, which is where all these offshore wind turbines are going to be. It's got to be really hard to find technicians in that area because it's a lot of finance. There's a lot of investment groups. There's a lot of teachers and schools. Just not a lot of mechanics.
I think you could see. Okay, so let's go back to what does an offshore wind farm technician's day look like? They're going SOVs. So if they're SOVs, a lot of times it's 2 on, 2 off, right? So I think that you'll see quite a few like maritimers from Maine coming down. Like, hey, I got to go do my hitch. Boom, come down for 2 weeks, go offshore, go back to Maine. Because they actually do have some maritime people there, and they're a little bit more. It's very rural up there, a little bit more mechanically inclined in my mind, and they're used to the water. Some fishermen from up there, or fishermen families and stuff. I can see that happening in the Boston area, and in Massachusetts, Vineyard Wind and whatnot.
Sure.
So that makes sense to me. But the ones on the southern coast, everybody I know, this is my stereotypical opinion of people from North and South Carolina is they're hanging out on the beach. They're not out working on vessels offshore. So I don't know where those ones are going to come from.
Well, I think that's where the trouble is. If we know that we're having a hard time right now, and I think the word on the street is they're having a hard time finding people. This is why. Mm-hmm. If they have to, America's 330 million people compared to Australia's 17 million, something like that. So we have a huge population base, but pulling them from the Midwest
Tough.
out to the East or West Coast is going to be dang near impossible. So what do?
You develop
just
in the
bring
Gulf.
in. Okay,
Because
that's where I was going.
the Gulf,
I think
yeah.
that's right.
The Gulf Coast, Louisiana is full of offshore workers. That corner of Texas is full of offshore workers. They're already there. They know their way around vessels. They're working on offshore platforms already. That one, I think. Here's your other one. Develop offshore wind in the Great Lakes. There's a ton of workers up there.
They've been prohibiting that. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it was Lake Erie where they put a stop to it. And I think a lot in the Great Lakes area, they're going to have a lot of trouble with putting wind turbines out there.
They will.
So offshore wind's going to be in trouble, I think, for technicians.
Mm-hmm.
I think in looking at these stats here, it indicates future trouble. Midwest, Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas.
There's a shortage, but it'll come.
Right.
So I think there's a generational thing here too, right? Where if you start talking about, okay, so I graduated high school in 2005, and there was not a talk, as in the Midwest, there was not a talk about a wind turbine whatsoever. And back then there was so few and far between that it wasn't a thing. Now, if you're growing up in high school in the Midwest, no matter where you've been, you've seen some. So it's a topic of conversation. Right. It's something at the forefront now. There's more programs being talking about them and whatnot. So the more we can educate the young people as they come up, and more of these little two-year technician degree programs pop up, I think that in the Midwest you'll see, because that's a high-paying job. In the Midwest, in the rural communities, there's not a lot of high-paying jobs. You know,
right? So let me throw this number at you. I know technicians that are making six figures in the Midwest. Right, so making $100,000 a year. They're working their tails off to do it, but they're doing it.
Yeah.
What would you have to pay someone like that to go out to Vineyard Wind or to any of these projects off the coast? What would it take? Is it $150,000?
Are you making them move there, or are you flying them back and forth for hitches?
You have to. Oh man. They can do whatever they please, but I think it all has to level itself out in a pay scheme of some sort, right? If they want to travel back and forth, they can do that on their own nickel.
Yeah. If Buddy,
what kind of salary range are we talking about?
If Buddy's
we're talking about almost $200,000.
Yeah. If he's making six figures, working wind farms in the Midwest, hanging out with his family and his buddies, having beers after work to get him to move to the East or West Coast, it's going to be $200,000. Well, you could factor in right away. Like say you're a guy from working on a wind farm in Minnesota, and you go to California, you lose 4% of your income overnight by state tax difference, because it's like 6% in Minnesota and 10% in California. Right. So boom, there you go.
Which is why you go to Texas, right?
Yeah.
To be a technician.
Texas resident.
Absolutely. Yeah, there you go. So Rosemary, how much money would it take for you to start climbing towers again? $200,000. Which is that what the number is? That's a good salary, right? I think you'd have to get to that number though, almost close to it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I really love climbing towers, but it's interesting to me. The first climb of a trip is like, this is the best. My job is so great. I can't believe I get paid to do this. Second day, you're a little bit tired. You're a bit sick of, there's no toilet up there, and it's kind of, it can be tedious. You're like, okay, you're set to come down at the end of the day, and then you go to restart the turbine and there's a fault, and you have to stay there until you solve that. And then third, fourth, fifth day, you're kind of like, okay, I'm exhausted. My harness is so heavy. I'm cold, and the food out here sucks. Yeah. No time to exercise, but you're exhausted anyway. And so I think I always, because I haven't climbed a turbine in in over a year now, I have my rose-colored glasses on about it. I'm like, you wouldn't have to pay me that much. Someone call me, please. I miss climbing turbines and I want to do it again. But to be a full-time wind turbine technician climbing every day, you would probably have to pay me quite a lot for me to stick with that more than a couple of months, I think.
At least you're still alive.
Well, we're going to find out. I think the data is fascinating.
Yeah.
And the more information we get as we go along here, unless this starts changing pretty soon, you're going to see some really high salaries for technicians, which is going to raise the price of energy. But yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, so we see that in Australia every time there's a mining boom. It inflates salaries for all kinds of trades, and also it kind of affects all kinds of engineering, which is nice for for all engineers, but it is ridiculous for the people working in the mining industry. And there's a lot of fly in, fly out in Australia because the places are so remote, and often no one even lives in the close to the mines where they've got to go. But it's definitely when you see a jobs boom like that, you do start pulling people with any kind of aptitude or any kind of remotely relevant previous work experience. You'll train them. I mean, it's not such a brand new, totally different job being a wind turbine technician to being, any other kind of mechanic or electrician or, something like that. And companies will train people. So I don't think it's going to be purely just a grab for the people with experience as a wind turbine technician. It's going to be partly about that because you need to train people and you need people that have, seen things before and continue that knowledge. So I think experienced wind turbine technicians, probably there will be the good ones. There will be some, competition to get them into new wind farms. But I think the majority of the jobs is going to come from taking either new apprentices fresh out of school or people that have a trade already and want to make a change and are happy to live in the area. That would be my guess.
Well, Joel, what are going to be the specific skill sets that's going to drive this? I'm thinking composite repair. If you have that skill set, that's going to kind of put you to the top of the ladder.
I think your composite repair is going to be an existing supply chain driven thing. If you're a composite repair person, I got a hard time thinking that you're going to be the ones going offshore if you're new to the industry. And that's just from my side thinking there's that skill set can be imported because I've seen it, we've done it. And I think, but it's the day-to-day guys, I think that we need to, that'll be the skills, right? So it'll be the oil changes, the regular guys checking meters, cleaning stuff up, inspections up tower, that kind of stuff. I think those are the more the service oriented rather than the specialty people will be the ones they're looking for. And it's the same thing. Like when an oil boom happens, there's drillers and they grab drillers from all over the world to go like so the oil boom in North Dakota in the 2006 to 2010 on Western North Dakota. A lot of those drillers came from Texas and Oklahoma and even some from overseas in the Middle East and stuff. Because if we need the drillers, those are the guys that are trained well. They know what they're doing. We'll pay them a premium. They come up here. But the service people that are driving around, checking roads, looking at gauges and running tools and that kind of stuff, those are the ones that are easier to pick up off the street. Where they're like, we'll have a hiring festival at this school and you can get hired on the spot. Yeah. In 2007, this one always sticks in my head, but in 2007, and I don't know if you're in the U.S., North Dakota, but if you're in a global audience, you may not know where Williston, North Dakota is, but it is in the western corner of North Dakota, in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by farm fields and nothing else, but now pump jacks and natural gas wellheads. But in 2007, there was a little car dealership in that town that sold the most amount of Corvettes in all of North America. And it was because all these, I mean, I was just fresh out of high school when this was happening, and I knew people going out there, 19, 20 years old, living in their cars, parking in Walmart parking lots, making 120 grand a year at 18 years old that couldn't tie their shoes.
Yeah, Texas is full of, when we were in Texas last time, I think with you, Joel, at a conference, I noticed how many RVs there were of mechanics.
Yep. And
they were living in their RVs. They had traveled from some other state and they were just living in their RVs, working jobs.
Yep.
That's what was happening. I was shocked. And the number of RV sales in Texas was astounding.
Yep.
Astounding. And pull behind trailers and pickup trucks, the sales on those were incredible. And I've been in Kansas and the Midwest where pickup sales are pretty good. They're nothing like Texas and those mechanics. They were.
You see, the Texas truck
smart people.
It's like a 1-ton truck with the dual rear wheels with a big Miller or welding Miller welding machine on the back of it with a bumper pull camper.
Yes.
And he's heading out, and he's got $10,000 worth of rims and tires on his truck and a fancy paint job and everything on it, and he's chasing pipelines. He or she.
That's a lifestyle, Rosemary.
I've done a bit of van
Chasing
life,
pipelines.
not for that reason, but in Europe, we had a transporter that we built a bed and some storage in the back. And one of my favorite holidays that we had was 3 weeks driving around Norway. We had 4 bikes, probably 4 surfboards, rock climbing equipment, hiking stuff as well, and us packed into this transporter and drove around, and it rained every day. Trying to dry your wetsuit when you're doing van life, and it's raining, no, not that easy, and I don't recommend.
These guys are traveling with welding rods, chewing tobacco, Monster energy drinks, and Bud Light.
America.
Yep.
Right there.
Yeah. Yep.